Welcome everybody back to Dude's Views. I'm Quentin Scott. This is Matt Layton, and we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic, especially right now, student loans. So, uh, for lack of a better phrase, the crap is hitting the fan as of May 5th. We've heard the term in legislation that everyone's going to have to pay their loans back. And if you're delinquent and or thinking they were going to be deferred and you are behind on payments, you can have that taken out of your wages, garnished and or have your return taken. And Matt, you probably know more about this than I do. Not that you've ever had this happen, you're just smarter than I am. That there's a clause in student loans that the federal government can actually reach into your bank account and just take what they want to out of it because student loans are the only loans you can't file bankruptcy on and you can't ever just get rid of. They've got to be paid to zero balance. So we're going to talk about student loans. Why'd you get them? Why you got to pay them back? Is it fair? Is it not? I think this would be a great episode. So, Matt, we were just kind of chatting before, and you had a really good point on there's a subset of loans that were given, both these kind of administration or the previous administration kind of given some loans during forgiveness and original loans during COVID. Small business loans were given to bridge the gap, the PPP loans. Student loan forgiveness had been a big topic of the Biden administration, but then also the kind of no interest, not paying the interest, stopping the payments, trying to help the economy kind of keep itself going. But now we've got one set that's been forgiven or kind of been erased, and the other set that's about to be sent to debt collection. So talk about kind of your point of view of like what's going on here.
Yeah, hey, what is going on here, right? I think you're kind of alluding to the fact that the Trump administration now has come out and says all this talk. So when COVID hit, you may correct me if I'm wrong. The previous administration put a pause to student loan payments, right? There was a lot of government intervention when we basically closed the world down due to the pandemic lockdowns, right? We
Yeah,
did a
and not only payments, but even interest accruing. They just stopped
sure,
the whole
and it's
system.
and it's beyond student loans, right? We did a foreclosure moratorium. We relaxed bankruptcy laws. The government sent cash out to everyone, just trying to keep the world afloat while the government basically forced everything to shut down and we all had to stay in our houses, right? And rightfully so. If folks can't work and we've got high layoffs, it probably was a good idea to pause student loan repayments, right? Among all the other things, it was going to be hard for a lot of people to make those payments. Well, here we are, what, 5 years later ish?
Almost 4 years to the
Yeah,
date of the
4 years.
shutdown.
The previous administration, we talked a lot about student loan forgiveness, not necessarily about when we're going to start paying again. It's just about can we erase all these debts all during that same time. I assume there was either a moratorium on interest or delinquencies. I assume that you could make the payments if you wanted to.
Mhm.
There may or may not have been any penalty for not making payments. But now we're coming out and hearing the new administration is saying they're going to begin requiring those payments to be made again on time, and they're going to begin taking action on those that are delinquent, right? So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of what now that's what the big discussion, for lack of a better word, is about currently. So we went full 180 here, right? We went from talking about total and complete forgiveness to we're going to garnish your paycheck, keep your tax returns, and come after you for those payments, right? So, yeah,
Yeah. And let's not, partisan decide or whatever. Last week we talked about the CSLI. We talked tariffs, we talked bankruptcies are up, we talked new construction on house buying's down. Now you're talking in less than 2 weeks, a whole new debt is about to hit Americans that hasn't been applied to them in 4 years. And then some wages garnished, things like that.
And
I
it's
mean,
most likely going to heavily affect those folks that are already feeling tremendous stress, right? So those
yeah,
people that are least equipped to, weather another downturn in their financial condition. I think it said something about, did I read it? 53 million people are currently delinquent in their student loan payments. I
yeah, I
think
know
that's a
it's a
I
tremendous
think that's a
amount.
stat that I just read earlier, kind of preparing for this. So that's a tremendously high number of folks, again, starting in May, that will potentially be further negatively impacted in their financial condition, right? So we've really got there's two discussion points here, right? And I think we've got to talk about them separately because they are different. One, I've taken a loan, right? That was a loan from the beginning, was always intended to be a loan, was always intended to be paid back. I find it hard to believe that anyone can now argue and debate whether they should pay that money back, right?
Yeah,
You agreed to pay it back at the time you took the loan. And again, we're talking specifically about educational
right. Yeah.
school loans here. So I don't know what the argument is now. When I agreed, when I took the loan to pay it back, I'm now going to say I shouldn't have to pay it back, right?
I
We
mean, the
can
argument is the
we can
government
argue
told me I
that,
didn't have to.
right, but we can argue whether is now the right time to require that, right? With kind of the way things, high interest rates, prices increasing, compounding high inflation rates over the years. We're beginning to see the tariffs kind of trickle into the economy and increase prices further. Is now the right time to do this? That's a valid question, but I don't think it's a valid debate to have to say no one should have to pay these loans back, right?
Right.
I think
Yeah,
we
and
kind of start with those two points of view.
yeah, and to answer your question, I'm one that has student loans. I went to school during COVID, and there was a lot of emails, a lot of communication, even by those that own they were communicating that these may be forgiven. And they were communicating, not, you don't have to pay this, you don't have to pay this, you don't have to do this. If you're this, you won't have to. If you're this, you don't have to. So many different, I think of the organization we have worked with that used to make a plan for every type of job out there. We had the steel worker and the cops and the teachers and the jazz band and musician, all kinds of stuff. But here's the actual numbers from the Department of Education.gov. Today, 42.7 million borrowers owe more than 1.6 trillion in student loan debt. Of those, more than 5 million borrowers have not made a monthly payment in over 360 days and sit in default. Many are more than 7 years, and 4 million borrowers are in the late stage of delinquency, which is 91 to 180 days. As a result, that could be more than 10 million borrowers are in default in just a month or two. Almost 25% of federal student loan portfolio is in default. Another bullet point they have here on the education.gov is only 38% of borrowers are in repayment and current on their student loans. So that's what 62% are either
Yeah.
default and or way past even being able to collect.
Yeah, I
Currently almost
said I said 53 million. It was 5.3 million. I kind of overshot there. I'm not
Currently, almost
very good at math.
1.9 million borrowers have been unable to even begin repayment because of processing pause put in place by the previous administration. So that's kind of some, we'll say, partisan rhetoric, whether it is or not. But they do, and you can go to on ed.gov and they begin to say exactly how they're going to begin to take these payments. If you can't make them, how they're going to help you. But it is a very brief of we will take money and we will get this $1.6 million repaid.
And again, I just go back to the point, why should anyone be surprised, right? Again, I've got I've got several real estate loans on either, rental properties or raw land that I've purchased. I can sit here and hope someone will defer my payment or, just wipe out the loan, but I can't bank on that, right? I've got
I
to,
know, but when the
I've
bank
got to
calls you
pay
and
the
says,
balance.
well, when the bank calls you and says, "Hey, Matt, Merry Christmas. You paid 11 payments. We're gonna let you pay $100 fee, and you can not pay this one." They still tack it in on the end. You still paying that
Yeah,
Christmas.
or if like some of these loans you said were a year delinquent, they're just going to take my 80 acres, right? I mean, they're going to stop jacking with me. They're just going to take it. So, and I sympathize, right? If someone's, had a hard time during COVID, or, I'm still trying to get back on my feet, or I feel like I was led to believe, well, all these loans were going to be forgiven, and I've, allocated that money elsewhere. Yeah, that sucks. But at the end of the day, you agreed and signed and took a loan.
Yeah.
I I don't think you can now shirk those responsibilities because a previous administration may have, led you to believe that it was possible that it would be forgiven.
The wise words of Ronald Reagan, I think, are ringing true right now. It's like the scariest word you'll ever hear is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you." And I
Well,
think on May 5th, that's probably going to be the downfall of
we're gonna help you. You don't
them.
have to worry about it. We're gonna help you pay back your
You don't
student.
even have to set up the draft. We know exactly where your money is. And
So
so,
I mean, maybe we could say we're being a little bit harsh, right? I mean, I don't even think about it like that, right? I mean, got to take emotion out of this. You either took a
right.
loan or you didn't, and if you did, you should pay it, and if you didn't, what did you do with the money? But I will just briefly talk about it. You mentioned it earlier. There was a another loan program for small businesses. It was the PPP. I don't even know what the P stand for, but that was another small business loan program. It does, in fact, appear that we've wiped out a lot of that debt, right? So folks that took out loans under that program,
It was the Paycheck Protection Program from the
yes,
U.S.
so
Small
small,
Business.
so small businesses could make payroll during kind of some of those lockdown periods. And, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe those were loans too. And a lot of those have been forgiven. So while I do have a problem forgiving one set of loans and not the other. So I mean, if there's any argument to be made here, I think all of those should be repaid, and we shouldn't be allowing, you know, politicians or folks, bureaucrats at government agencies deciding who should have to repay a loan and who shouldn't.
So
So
it,
that
it
is a problem, and I don't agree with forgiving some and not others.
so at SBA.gov, you can go to PPP loan forgiveness and learn where to apply for loan forgiveness, how to apply for forgiveness, when to apply, how to check the status of your application, and additional forgiveness resources, so on and so forth. And they even give you standards of which how much in amounts of your loan that you took out, the process in which you need to go about getting it forgiven. So yeah, to your point, a whole website built on one loan that we are going to take money out regardless. Another loan, here's how you get it forgiven. Two subsets of people.
So, I mean, I would like to know what that rationale was behind making one repay to the point where we're just going to come and get it from you, whether you pay it or not, and totally forgiving another one, right? I mean, I could
Yeah.
probably sit here and make an argument that, the our country is built on the back of small businesses and our economy is almost fully consumption based. And if small businesses aren't paying their employees, one, the business is going to go out of business, and two, the employee, can't buy food and or keep the economy afloat because their consumption is reducing, right? I could make that argument, right? But
Right.
again, if they're both loans, how can, with a straight face, a politician or a bureaucrat stand up there and say, most likely someone who's, is in the least is least able to pay those back, right? Someone who's having student loan issues is probably having other financial difficulties. So I mean,
Hmm.
we're like squeezing blood out of a turnip here, right? We're going after folks that probably are least prepared to pay any of this back. And on the other hand, these small businesses love small business, but we're gonna forgive those loans, but we're not on the student loan debt. I just
Yeah.
I think they've all got to be paid back, or we've got to agree that we're going to forgive them all.
Right.
I don't agree with picking one over the other for forgiveness.
Right. And you can't even argue, like, because the loans you were talking about, mortgage, auto, things like that, there is actual tangible goods that can be acquired and resold to reclaim the loan. So that's why foreclosures happen. That's why what they call it, repos happen, repossessions of vehicles, things like that happen. Yeah, you got to pay fines and things like that. But ultimately, you don't have to repay the loan because the bank winds up settling the note with you in a lawsuit, and then they wind up making their money back. In this case, both of these sets of loans, there is no capital to go get. There is no tangible product to go acquire. They can't come and take your degree off your wall. You still have it. They can't go to East Central University or Life Pacific and send an email and be like, Matt and Quentin can no longer have a college degree because they didn't pay their student loans. Like that's not how that works.
That would be interesting, right? They go to the college and just erase your name from the graduation rolls.
Yeah, I wonder how that would work with on people that who have MBAs and stuff that haven't paid back that are in leadership roles. All of a sudden, you're not qualified even though you went to class.
That
But
may be a way to solve it. If you don't want to repay your loan, we're going to just erase the fact that you went to school.
yeah, and we bring this up because we've been talking about politics and we've been talking about finances, and this kind of is both worlds collide. And to your point, we have a college here in Ada, Matt. There's several colleges all across Oklahoma. We got the three big universities, four if you count ORU, but OU, OSU, Tulsa, and then Oral Roberts or ORU. So four D1 colleges in Oklahoma. I'm sure we could probably figure out, but a massive student debt just alone in Oklahoma. Well, the federal government comes and begins to garnish wages at the state level or at our individual level, our state economy is going to suffer because that $250, $300 that I used to have that I spent at the local small business is now out of my check. And so we may see a ripple effect happen as these garnishments and this money's taken out.
No,
And
and I'm fully with you there, and kind of going back to what we talked about last time in the consumer stress legal index. We're absolutely beginning to see how that consumer financial stress is kind of leaking over into what we're going to begin calling small business stress, right? So
yeah,
if the average everyday consumer is stressed financially and I can't pay all of my bills, right? Of course, spending is going to decline, right? And when spending declines, where would that spending have went? To all these businesses and small businesses, across the world and in the local communities. So we're on top of, individual financial stress we're beginning to see small business legal requests for collections, billing disputes, bankruptcies rise, right?
right.
As a lagging indicator of that stress on the consumer, right? And that stress on the consumer is becoming to show that it's a leading indicator on future small business stress. So unfortunately, we may be creating a infinite doom loop here, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
The cycle of suck may be
the the
in
consumer's
order.
already stressed today. We're gonna add another bill on top of 5.3 million people who can't afford it now. So what's that going to do to stress, right? Consumer
Yeah.
stress is going to increase further. They're going to get further behind on their bills. We're already seeing, you know, mortgage payments in delinquency at a highest rate we've seen in many, many, many years. credit card debt is hitting an all-time consumer credit card debt's hitting an all-time high. Again, folks are already stressed. This is certainly going to hit another portion of that population and increase that stress.
Yeah, and this has always been kind of just sitting in the back of the government's mind and everyone's mind of like what happens if they're forgiven, what happens to the economy if they're actually repaid, what happens to the economy? Because I think also the question is like, okay, well, this 1.6 trillion is repaid, where does it go? Because the Department of Education is one person now, the Secretary of Education. So where's this 1.6 trillion going? Where is this current administration? Where are they funneling that cash? Which I think is the Department of Treasury that will begin to recollect and reclaim that money now.
Hopefully it goes to pay down the debt and the deficit, but who knows where it'll get earmarked to.
Yeah, what would we say? We quoted Governor Stitt that said government will spend every dollar you give them. So there's no telling where they're going.
And that may be the biggest argument for the folks that are just upset, want it forgiven. I don't want to repay it. Is like government, you've proven yourself so worthless in managing money anymore. What I mean, if we're 30, 40 trillion in debt, what's one more trillion? All right, who cares? And you
Yeah,
know what? That makes sense. I don't know that I fully trust our government today to be, financially smart with the money, right? But I say it goes back to the point where you signed for a loan.
right.
Why don't you think you have to repay it? You agreed to repay it when you took it.
Yeah,
Who cares if someone rolls it up and smokes it when you pay it? It doesn't
yeah.
matter what they're going to do with it. You agreed to repay it.
Yeah, and like it or not, or not Oklahoma is, but America is a capitalistic society. Money changes hands, it's transactional every single day. We wake up, we watch the stock market, we watch everything ebb and flow because it's all transaction based, money based. The whole everything we do, our economy, the economy, you can't have an economy without cash flowing. And so, regardless if these are going to be collected on, and we don't know. We don't know if May 4th this administration comes out and says we're going to pause for 30 days because we've done some research and we've seen the economic impact this could have. They may come back and be like, yeah, we know it's going to hurt. We're trying to reset the button. But we just know, and man, I'm gonna look forward to the May and then June and July stress index because I've got a feeling it's going to be through the roof
Mm,
as our attorneys just begin to get more calls now, probably about debt collection and bankruptcy, because people you're going to wonder, can I file bankruptcy? Because now you said a great line last week. Bankruptcy is the last resort you come to, but it's always a thought you have. If people are already having that thought and then go to a lawyer and say, can I? And the answer is no, you can't file. You're defeated.
mm,
And when this is the only one you can't get away from, where do people go? And so it'll be very interesting in the months coming up to see where the stress goes and also where the burn off comes from of people just ditching subscriptions.
yep.
Is it the tourism gets hit that we don't see as many vacations being taken? It'll be interesting to see which industries get affected in the next 3 to 6 months, even a year.
Mm. And just kind of knowing that I can't write this loan payment off in bankruptcy, does that push people sooner to bankruptcy, right? Knowing that, well,
Yeah,
hell, I'll just go ahead and do it, and then I'll have this one bill and I can
right.
swing it, right? It's coming. I don't have any money for it. I may not be able to get away from it, but I can get away from all these others, and I can pay 250 a month or whatever the
Yeah.
whatever the loan payment is.
Yeah, so to Matt's point, don't be shocked if you see bankruptcy skyrocket
And
because people
even
are like,
right,
if I can save my house and
and
I,
remember, even before this, our bankruptcy index was alluding to the fact that we were going to see increased bankruptcies through summer into the fall, and that's
it's
that's
just
even
going to
before
compound
taking into
it.
account this.
Yeah, when you wrote that index, you didn't have a clue that this administration was going to put this in place. This was kind of rumored, but they actually enacted it and they're standing firm on it. So it's going to be interesting with tariffs compounding on this, compounding on that, compounding on that. And I agree with you. I think ultimately it drills down to the American person is the one that loses out.
Yep.
So I don't know if you got
Hey, I
anything
do.
else. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I want to ask you a question, kind of switching gears a little bit, but not really. Kind of back to the question of, why might the the whatever Paycheck Protection Program, why might a small business loan be forgiven overall, right? Why might that program be considered for forgiveness, whereas a student loan program wouldn't be?
Well, I may steal your answer because I think we have the same one, but I think it's because of small business owners and or their friends are writing checks to the politicians making the legislation, and the everyday consumer isn't. And so I think that's why some are forgiven and some aren't.
Yeah, and I hate that. And I think, I mean, my feelings exactly in line with yours. And I hate that something potentially this important, right? And again, to the financial condition of the American family, I hate that I hate that the decision point is coming down to something along political grounds, right? Not necessarily what's right or wrong, may not even be what's best for the country or for the individual. I fully believe that, the again, I'm as pro business as anyone, right? But that Chamber of Commerce has a big lobby. Small business owners have money. They've got a great big lobby. They're funding political campaigns. Politicians want to be re-elected. Why wouldn't I forgive a big chunk of loans to the small business community when I know those people are going to be potentially, at least in part, funding my next election?
Yep.
And I hate to kind of go that direction, but I don't have a better answer as to why one can be forgiven quiet, we're not even talking about it, and then another not be forgiven with the argument that, oh my goodness, there's so much of this outstanding money, it's going to crater the economy. We've got to get this money back in the treasury. I mean, all the reasons being argued for student loans having to be paid back could equally be argued for all of these small business loans to be paid back. So
Yeah.
I do, again, that's the only issue I have with this whole discussion is that who gets to decide and why which loans are forgiven and which aren't.
Yeah. And hey, again, we always say this. You have the power to vote these people out of office. The ones that you can go, you can find out who pushed or who has been listening to the lobbyists about this and who has been going for it and who's been for it. They're very candid and open about it. You have the right to vote them in and out in a federal election and some of your local representatives and senators who are supporting some of this stuff. If it directly affects you, you actually, as an American, have the right to voice your opinion at the ballot. Don't do it on social media. Do it at the ballot box. That's where it actually counts because no representative or senator actually cares about what you have to say on Facebook as much as they'd like to make you think. So, Matt,
Or
I don't
as
know if you
much as much as you think typing mad on the social media is going to change the opinion of anyone else out in the world,
right.
it's what it's not.
More likely you're just going to get an opposing troll and you two are going to go at it while other people laugh at the conversation and it'll be over with. And so, Matt, I don't know if you got anything else to add, but all right. Well,
Nope.
we'll see you guys next week.